Final hour overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. Rams-Vikings tonight in Arizona because of the wildfires in L.A. So you've got a neutral site game, Vikings minus 2.5, totals 47.5. We'll get to our best bets later on. Chris Johnston later in the hour. On Mitch Marner, what Brad Treliving had to say today, the Leafs in action against Dallas tomorrow night. Matt Duchene will join us in a few moments. Having a great season. Leading their team in points.
Man, he fell into their lap. He got bought out in Nashville. They paying him $3 million a year.
Pretty good deal.
He's a good player.
Yeah, he went from a situation that pissed him off too. Like, he was jacked up to go to Nashville. He signed a big long-term deal there, and then to have that kind of swept underneath him, I don't think he was too jacked up. I don't think anybody would be.
Well, in 21-22. He had 43 goals and 86 points for Nashville. And then after the next season, they bought him out. Yeah. Like, what was Barry Trotz doing?
I don't know. They flushed him. They got rid of Ryan Johansson as well.
Yeah.
Like, there was some players there. I think they just were like, we need a change. I don't know what the thought process is behind it, but like, we are changing the whole look of this. He makes $3 million a year looking at this.
Yeah, and he's probably still getting bought out from Nashville too, right? He had 3 years left on his deal, I think it was.
Oh yeah, but he's a UFA at the end of this season. Like, he's
at what? How old is he? 34?
33 right now.
33. Yeah, he'll be 34. So that's
an interesting one. Yeah, he'll be 34 in like 3 days, January 16th.
He's a good player, though. Really good player and nifty. They've got that Dallas team. Obviously I did the game yesterday. They've got a really good mix of older players and good young players coming through.
Well, that's the key to a lot of the teams we talk about, Noodles. The teams like Pittsburgh, if you're relying on Gino and Sid as your main guys and you don't have guys for separate nights, let's call it, or most nights that move the envelope like Dallas has in some of their younger players, and if you're simply relying on the Sidney Crosbys and Malkins to be your go-to guy, you're probably going to be screwed at the end.
Yeah,
but they don't have it, and Dallas does.
Yeah, they've got guys like that. Harley's 23 years old. Lundqvist is 24. Heiskanen's only 25. And then up front, they've got that Maverick Bork, who was a really high-scoring AHL player. He's 23.
Dude, what about their goalie?
Stankoven.
Their goalie's 24.
Bonder's young,
He's 25. Yeah.
Their issue this year is they don't score.
Yeah.
Like, they're having a really difficult. Like, Jason Roberts in the last 2 years, I don't know what's happened with him, but his numbers have just completely fallen off. And, again.
Fallen off to a level where people are like, what the hell's going on here?
Exactly. He's got 11 goals. He's on pace for 20 goals this year. This guy who scored 40. He was a guy that you thought, like, he went 41, 46 in back-to-back years. Last year he had 29. This year he's got 11. And he's 25 years old. It's a real conundrum as to what has happened there. And, again, Matt Duchene leading them in points. Jamie Benn's third in points, ahead of the Johnston and Hintz and
Stankoven, guys like that,
Stankoven,
those guys. Like, I was looking at it, I think Stankoven's got 1 goal in like 19 games. Like, you're right, they don't score a lot, but they don't give up a lot.
They don't give up much. They're still in the playoffs out west.
Well, they're like a really good team. I think they're point percentage, they're 5th in the league, aren't they?
They got 55 points in 42 games. So do the math.
Yeah, they're really, and Pete DeBoer, our buddy Pete DeBoer, like, that team is coached well. Like, they are tight. Like, really.
Pete's a player's coach, right? Like, that's always his reputation. The players love playing for him. I think Matt Duchene was speaking about that recently. Yeah. About just, how he's open, he's honest, but he backs you up. He gives you a chance to breathe. And, there's every coach in the league's got a different approach and a different viewpoint on how to operate and kind of mingle with the players. DeBoer's just kind of figured it out, man.
Well, they had won 7 in a row coming into that game last night. Like, and you're right, it wasn't they weren't blowing teams out; they were just beating them every night. They won 7 in a row.
2-1, 3-1, 3-2, and
whatever it takes.
Yeah. That was a big win by Ottawa. That was a big weekend, man. They needed that in Pittsburgh on Saturday, and
especially after that loss. You guys want to see the most bizarre game I watched all weekend? Was the Buffalo Sabres Kraken. Okay, Buffalo's up 2-1 with like a couple seconds in the second period. The Kraken tie it up with a few seconds left, okay, in the second period. I go and do something. I come back. There's 10 minutes left in the third.
6-2.
It's 6-2. Kraken!
I saw that game.
Was that game not being played? Dude, was that yesterday that game was being played? No, that was a couple of days ago, I guess.
It was maybe on Saturday at 1 o'clock.
Yeah,
but and I looked at the screen. I just said to myself, there's no way in hell that screen could be right. They had just tied it up before the third, and then they went up 6-2 on the Sabres. I'm like, that is something else, man. That is outrageous.
That's why, again, if you're the Sabres, it's obviously been ugly for you, but at least the Bills just keep playing like it's all about cover. You know, like down in Buffalo, you obviously have pride and you want to win.
You finish out the season, and then you have a Buffalo Bill at every home game to do an autograph signing.
That's
and wave
exactly
to the
what
crowd.
it is.
Every game.
Exactly
every game.
what it is. And, like, I would think the Stars, like, I'm always curious about a market like that because the Cowboys, it's so crazy. You know, like what the Leafs are here, it's the Cowboys down there. Now this Mike McCarthy story, it sounds like he may not be the coach anymore. Like the Stars are on fire, and I'll bet you down in Dallas, it's like, hey, what are we going to do with Dak next season?
Well, it's that Jerry Jones. He calls into radio stations all the time. Like he's a unique owner. We'll call it that.
Get your act together.
Exactly.
No kidding.
Exactly.
Well, the Stars will be in town tomorrow night. They're doing their Eastern Canadian trip, and again, we've got the leading scorer of the Stars, good Halliburton boy. Here's Matt Duchene. What's happening, Matt?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
We're doing well. I guess let's get to the Cowboys, if you don't mind, before we get to the game tomorrow night. What's it like in Dallas? Like, you guys can be red hot, and Jerry Jones might say something on a radio interview, and I'm guessing the whole market just kind of goes crazy about that, or what?
You know what? It's actually not like that.
Really?
Our fan base, yeah. I mean, everyone's got their, everybody's down there knows about the Cowboys, but our fan base is really sneaky in a good way. I mean, like, people don't really realize it. We didn't realize it until we got there. It's really passionate. They're kind of two separate entities. The Stars are a big deal down there. It was something that caught me off guard. I mean, my first preseason game down there, I remember it felt like the attendance was like a regular season game. People are there for warm up, and there's a really big following of us down there, and it doesn't feel like your typical kind of southern U.S. city where you have a big football team in town. So the other thing too is I think because the stadium's so far out, it's out in Arlington. Mm-hmm. I think it kind of keeps them two separate things. So. That I thought I was going to feel that, like kind of what you guys were talking about. I thought it was going to have that feel, but it doesn't at all. It's pretty cool.
Matt, we were talking before you came on about how you have a good mix of veteran players in that dressing room, and then you've got a layer of really good young players coming in. Just maybe talk about that dynamic, and maybe that bodes well for the depth of your team. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we have. Like you said, I mean, we got some really young guys. We got some guys that are kind of mid-20s, and then there's a bunch of us kind of in our early 30s. So, it's an interesting mix. There's some big age gap, and we definitely at the back of the bus have some chuckles about it every now and then, as you guys can imagine, that have been back there before. But I mean, it's good. The young guys are awesome. I mean, they love the game, and
they sure roll a different way now, don't they, Matt? Like, they love their phones they roll different.
We have some good laughs about that. It's funny you asked about that, because on this road trip in particular, we had a dinner. It was a bunch of the 30-somethings, and we were laughing a little bit about what it was like when we were younger. But the older guys have changed too. It's a very different dynamic, especially out on the road than it used to be. So, it's different for sure.
So is that basically guys don't party anymore on the road? Like how is it different for vets today compared to maybe 12, 13 years ago? Yeah, I mean, definitely a little bit less. I think the difference is now is it's like, it's not happening as often, and you got to keep, yourself physically kind of there, right? And there's definitely, for me, I think there's you try and balance both. I mean, if it's a green light, so to speak, I think you got to be going as a group. I think it's so important for your locker room, and
for your guys and to get together. And but also too, like those young guys look to us to set the tempo and set the kind of the rules that way, right? So and hey, if guys will say, hey, if this guy's going, it's okay to go, or if hey, he's not going to go, I'm not going to go, type thing. So you got to be cognizant of that, and I think our group is, and we've definitely had a ton of fun together this year when it's been time, and then when it's time to kind of get ready for games and be good pros, we got that mix as well. So I definitely, though, I will say, like, the road dinners are definitely still going strong. So those are important times together, and obviously a big part of it.
With Matt Duchene and the Dallas Stars, Dallas in town tomorrow night. We're obviously in Toronto. We're always talking kind of about the Leafs, and we were discussing earlier this afternoon them going through Western Canada, where you're going to play all three teams, and eventually you go through California. You're going to play the three California teams. It's the opposite for Western teams. You're going to come through Eastern Canada, and you're going to play the Habs. You're going to play Ottawa. You're going to play Toronto. You guys are in the midst of that. Bell Center Saturday night, Ottawa yesterday, Toronto tomorrow. You're an Ontario guy. You're an Eastern Canadian guy. What's this experience been like, though, when you've been in the West, when you've been in Nashville, now in Dallas? Like, how would you compare and contrast this 3-game swing through Eastern Canada compared to maybe anywhere else you might go in the NHL?
Yeah, it's my absolute favorite. It's really special to me. My wife brought my 6-year-old son up. He turned 6 on the 9th, and he was born in Ottawa. Right, he was 6 weeks old when we left there to go to Columbus, and she brought him up for a birthday trip, and it was his first time back to Ottawa since. And bring him to the Bell Center and have we were a Montreal Canadiens family growing up. The history meant a lot to us, and I wore number 9 because of Maurice Richard, and there's a lot of big stuff there. So I brought him down to pregame skate. I had him come in the room with me after, and then I remember just obviously coming out for games there is really special, and they do an unbelievable job. That rink feels like a kind of a cathedral of hockey, right? And I'm before the game started, I was like, geez, I'm kind of emotional here having my kid here watching this game. So it's really special. And then Toronto, Ottawa, for me, I got a ton of family there. My mom's side is all from Eastern Ontario, and I had a ton of people there last night, and my grandparents on my dad's side, and and then tomorrow I have a bunch of friends, and my sister's coming, and you get to play in kind of the fishbowl of hockey. It's special, and obviously we have a heck of a team in Dallas, and we're kind of hidden a little bit from the big media markets, and this is our chance to kind of show what we got on that stage. And everyone knows that, and it's exciting. So this is definitely every year when the schedule comes out, I definitely look to see when we're going through, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto.
So can you speak to the difference of the travel too? Being out east, you've been in Ottawa, you've been in Columbus, but then, you've been in Colorado and Nashville and now Dallas. Those are a lot longer road trips. And, as far as just flight time and time zone changes, is there a big difference from it? Because we do speak to it, like O played in Toronto, O played in Carolina. I played out west as well. It does wear and tear on you as far as, getting on you a little bit as far as the body.
Yeah, no, I can for sure. I think the easiest travel I had was when I was in Columbus. I was only there for a bit though. So, but, and I was there kind of in the spring when the weather gets better. And the big thing is I found in Ottawa is when you're going to the States, you're going through, you're going through normal airport, which takes a little bit longer. Then you get on the plane and you got to de-ice, which, can take 30 to an hour extra. So you end up with a 2-hour flight time anyway, so it's kind of like you're sitting on a plane seat for the same amount of time. So I haven't really found playing in the West. It's never really bothered me too much. The one that always kind of gets to me is when we go out west to the Pacific time zone. I have a really hard time adjusting when we come back. I don't know what it is. Even when I was in Colorado and it was only an hour, it just always threw me off. But it's not as much when we're out there. It's more when we come back. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind going out on the road for a little while and then coming home and having those home stands and kind of being able to set up shop a little bit and kind of get into a groove. It's kind of all I know, right? Because I was in Colorado so long to start my career, and I've only been in the East a little bit. So I've never found it too bad. But yeah, I mean, too long of a home stand and too long of a road stand always a road trip always kind of gets to you, and no matter who or where you're playing.
What about the quality of your division, Matt? We always talk about the Atlantic with Tampa and Florida and the Boston Bruins. But if you guys went on a divisional trip in your division, man, that's murderer's row, man. Like, That's a tough division for quality teams.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it right now. I looked at it like a week ago. I remember I was sitting, Jamie Benn and I sit right by each other on the plane, and we're always kind of at the back talking about stuff. And I was showing him the standings and where like the 5th place team in our division stands versus 5th place team or 4th place teams in other divisions. And it's like, I think it was Utah we were looking at, and they're a heck of a team. I mean, they've given us as much trouble as anyone we've played this year. They're young, they're fast, they're offensive, they're stingy. I mean, yeah, our division is not is definitely no walk in the park, and it's been really competitive. I've been in the Central Division most of my career, and it's been every year you're just like, wow, like it's an arms race. It feels like in the summer, and teams are getting good draft picks, and everybody's just so competitive all the time, and you got to go through those rounds in the playoffs, and it's tough. There's no easy nights when you're playing in that division, that's for sure.
With Matt Duchene, Leafs Stars tomorrow night, you're leading your team in points, and like you're having a great season. You obviously had a great career, but when you got bought out in Nashville, that was a shock. Like everyone in the league, we were all working that day. We're like, what is going on down there? Then you sign in Dallas, and you've been great ever since you arrived, and this year everything's working for you. Leaving Nashville, was that like an inspiration? Do you feel like it had any effect on the way you've played? And can you speak to just, why it's connected so well for you down there? And obviously you're having another great season.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I mean, it was a shock. I'm sure if it was a shock to you guys, you can imagine what it was to me.
Oh yeah.
And my family, and total upheaval and uprooting of somewhere that we were ready to be the rest of our career, and rest of my career, I should say. And and I think the biggest thing with getting to Dallas was the people. I think Jim Nill, Pete DeBoer, Steve Spott, Misha Donskov, our coaching staff there, Blaine Nazardine, all those people, the people within the organization, the way they brought me in and welcomed me, and obviously my teammates, they just like it was such a soft place to land after everything went down. And even coming back this year, like, we had no money on July 1. And I didn't even care, like, what, obviously doing another 1-year deal wasn't ideal, but, it was, I just wanted to come back, and I want to be part of this. And the people involved have really, made a big difference. And it was when it all went down, I never doubted, myself as a hockey player. I mean, the last, when we traded everybody away my last year in Nashville, when we kind of completely uprooted, I was about a point per game that year. The year before, I had my best year in the league, and I feel like I've gotten better as a player as I've gotten older. And right now, I still, I feel like I still have another gear to get to, and it excites me. It gets me up every day, and to play for a team like this that's such a contender. And be part of that, and just have that as part of your everyday drive. It's really special, and I think I appreciate it more now in my 30s. And Jamie and O, I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. You get a little bit older, and you start to see the clock ticking on you a little bit, and I still have quite a bit of runway left, I feel like, but at the same time, I got way more behind me than ahead of me. And I think just coming into this organization, seeing how they do things, and having a chance to win right off the bat. I mean, we could have won last year. I think if we had a little bit easier route through. I think we basically played 3 conference final caliber teams, and just kicked the crap out of us, and we had nothing left by the end. And this year we're right there. We've won 7 of our last 8, and it's just really exciting to be part of this franchise, and it's hopefully somewhere I can I would love to finish out here if everything aligns.
Matt, thanks for doing this. I want to leave you with one thing. Both of your coaches, Spotter and Pete DeBoer, they're aware I like to comment on other coaches' hair. And you speak about runway. Both of those 2 gentlemen are running out of runway. So you tell them to get the clippers out soon, and they're going to have to go Messier, because I'm done seeing that on the bench. So you can let them know.
I'm gonna have to tell them that tomorrow. That's pretty funny.
All right.
Make sure they know it. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it, man. Good luck tomorrow night.
Take care, guys.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
You got it. There's Matt Duchene. Tell you what, you speak of hair, man. Like Jamie Benn still got the best hair in the league. Sagan's hair.
And it's jet black.
Yeah.
It's jet black, and his warm-up routine, Ben's could be like the best in the league because he has it all slicked back, and he comes out no bucket, and he is just old school. Like I watched
love it, man.
I laid eyes
He's
on
the
him
best.
yesterday, and I'm like, this guy is like he's just a cool dude.
No visor.
He's a mountain man. He's a man rocket. I want to be that guy. Like I look at that guy and I'm like, I want to be that guy.
Like,
And I don't say that about anybody.
Yeah, he's got him, Sagan, like no bucket all the time. Duchene still got the hair cooking.
Just two strips of tape on his twig, and it's like, feed me on the left wing, and I'm going to rip it under the bar.
I can score. I can beat you up. Like he is a throwback. Like
Dude, he's so awesome. I love that guy.
Yeah, he's old.
Well,
school.
no one, like, I was surprised by the reaction, and it was more so because, like, when I go down to Leaf games, I was down there for the next gen game when they played Winnipeg. And I'm never down there for warm-ups because generally I'm doing the show and then I'm flying down there. Or if I'm going down there on the weekend, I'm talking to people, then, the anthem's on, okay, let's get ready. I'm never down there paying attention to warm-up.
Right.
Because it was the next gen game, we went for lunch, and then we wanted to get in there early. The kids wanted to go and check it out. So I actually was watching warm-up. 2 players on the ice without a helmet.
Dude, that busted you. Like, you were bent out of shape.
I was shocked by that, man. Like the Leafs, obviously, they clearly have a policy where, they're all wearing helmets. But it was like Colin Miller, I think, Morrissey, and actually Lowry. There were 3. Adam Lowry was like, I'm going no helmet. There were 3 guys on the Jets without a helmet. And I'm like,
dude,
man.
I remember in Nova Scotia, Mark Janssens, who was a grizzled veteran on Hartford, and it was my first warm-up, and I was walking out, and he goes, why aren't you putting your helmet on? I said, Janner, I've been waiting my whole life, and it ain't going on, and it's never going on. You can do whatever you want. You could think a certain way about me. And I never wore my helmet in one warm-up in 821 games. Yeah. I can't believe guys are not like, it's just it's a special feeling.
You have to go no helmet.
Dude, I know.
And I'm saying that I've never played in the NHL. I get it. I know it's a safety thing. And again,
isn't it Gord, Jamie, who he thinks everyone should wear their helmets because it's a safety.
I don't know. I like. There's so many people. Like I think Craig is against it too. And Craig, I believe, had a policy in Calgary. But I
remember
them
go no helmet.
There were warm-ups where I went no bucket. I'd skate out with no bucket.
I love a goalie with no helmet.
Dude, you got 4 laps, put the mask on the bench. That is awesome.
That's so good.
I don't know why, but I had the long hair. I'm like, hey, I just put the mask on the bench. You'd go for a twirl. And when it was my time to go in the net, you put the mask on and go down. Like that's...
Dude, I even love some morning skates. If you're the first one out there, just fire the bucket on the bench and then do the skate around, round and around with no bucket. It's so you feel like Guy Lafleur.
Yeah, it's the National Hockey League. Man.
Yes.
Come on. We're all adults here. Come on.
I love it. But there was, obviously, the Taylor Hall situation
I understand
was awful.
That was
somebody
bad.
Skated over his face.
Yes.
Right? Like, I can't remember how many stitches he got. And I do remember Travis Green, I think, broke Pierre Turgeon's cheekbone with a shot off the crossbar, and it hit Turge.
I saw the same thing. Stephen Rice was scratched for 20 games in a row when he got put in Washington. Yeah. He skated onto the ice, grabbed a puck, and was 5 feet from the net and tried to rip it bar down, hit the crossbar, and split his forehead open, and he missed another 2. Like, he was gone for the – like, he never
the guys like that have to wear helmets.
No, here's what happened. He got the stitches, so he's about to come back again. He decides to wrestle with Stu Grimson in the dressing room, and Stu Grimson puts him in a full Nelson and jacks his neck up, and then he was really gone.
How do you even, put him on the IR like that?
I don't know, but why? Like, you're about to come back, and you're healthy, and the coach calls your number, and you wrestle with Stu Grimson. And Stu put him in a full Nelson and jerked his neck, and he was gone for another. It was basically game over.
Yeah, that's concerning. That was probably not a wise decision. Why are you fighting with Stu Grimson of all people?
Well, they weren't fighting.
I know, messing around, wrestling.
You just seriously sit in a bathroom and don't do anything until that puck drops.
Yeah, But even a lot of those injuries, man, like if you didn't have a visor on, it wouldn't have stopped anything. Like a helmet and I don't know. I mean, I was taken aback by the amount of people that were like, hey, it's a safety thing. How dare you? You're a dinosaur. I'm like, I don't know, man. I just always thought it was the coolest thing ever. No helmet and warm-up. Like just as a kid going down, walking through the gardens, man. Remember, you'd see through the path, you just see hair. Like you just see mullets and hair, and it was phenomenal. All right, Chris Johnston coming up. His take on the Leaf game on Saturday night. Mitch Marner's comments post-game, what Brad Treliving had to say today, and our best bet still to come. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, hoping to get Nick Taylor on the show tomorrow. We're looking forward to that. And he's won now 5 times on tour, and he won last year, obviously, at the Waste Management. And TSN 1050 wants you to be our unofficial correspondent at the grittiest golf event of the year. To enter, you download the iHeartRadio app, create an account, listen to TSN 1050 for at least 15 minutes straight. Once you hit 15 minutes, follow the prompts to complete your entry. And whether it's 15 minutes of First Up in the morning or 15 minutes of Overdrive, the more you listen, the better your chances. Next Monday, First Up will be calling one lucky listener with a trip for 2 to the Waste Management Open in Arizona. Full details at tsn1050.ca. That is where Nick Taylor will be defending. Nick Taylor will be defending his championship at the Waste
Management. Dude, what a win for that guy, man. I was so jacked up watching that.
It was so good.
So good.
So good. Now he's back in the Masters, right, because he wasn't guaranteed to get back in. He's in it. Pendrith is going for the first time. Connors is there. Weir's there. We need to get Mackenzie Hughes in, right? That's next. And they're back in California this weekend. They're at the Amex, and then Torrey Pines, and then Pebble, and it's go time. All right, Leafs back in action against Dallas tomorrow, coming off 2 straight losses. Prior to that, they had won 5 in a row. Here's our TSN Hockey Insider joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Here's Chris Johnston. What's happening, CJ?
Not much, guys. How are you?
We're doing well. We saw Brad Treliving speaking today. Is there anything you picked up from what he had to say that you think is newsworthy or at least the most newsworthy of what he had to say earlier this morning?
Well, I felt like Brad was pretty careful not to make too much news today, and watching that back, definitely addressed some of the issues with the team, talked about the power play being something that needs to be a weapon for them as opposed to what it has been, which obviously we've hit on a lot following the Leafs travails this season. But I think that it's clear the Leafs are in a mode now where they're starting to look around the league and see what might be out there for them. But you just get the feeling, not specifically from Brad's avail, but just conversations going on right now. It has quieted down a little bit, and I'm not sure how the Four Nations tournament's going to affect when trades happen or what happens. But we just got so many teams still in the mix. Teams like the Leafs that are not yet sure exactly what the center market's going to look like, I think, are going to take a little time before they figure out what they're doing there.
CJ, what about a power play coordinator market for the fellas? Like someone to run the power play, like from an insider,
You're naming the hat there, or what?
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking about on the bench. I'm talking about on the ice, like a power play quarterback. Like, what is your take on watching their power play with so much skill that's kind of not getting it done right now? Actually, a lot not getting it done.
I think there's a lot of people have mentioned, obviously talented guys and they played together a long time, and that should be an advantage. I mean, I can see the disadvantage in that because, in a way, when it's not new blood and things go the wrong way, and let's face it, they've gone the wrong way at key times in the past with these same players on the power play. I think, sometimes you want fresh ideas, a fresh approach, and, they just don't have that. I mean, it's been the same guys there. I mean, that being said, obviously this personnel is finished. I think, a couple years ago they were second in the league for a whole season on the power play. I mean, there's no reason to think they won't have better efficiency than they have now. But, I don't have the answers for them. I'll leave that to the experts. But certainly I liked what I heard from Matthews the other night post-game, just talking about, too much happening on the outside, not enough being done. I mean, it feels to me when, even when you have skilled guys like Simple and Wright, you just want to simplify the approach, get more shots, get more action around the net. And it just seems to me they haven't done that enough.
CJ, any updates on a guy like Stolarz, and his timeline? I mean, I didn't get to listen to the whole Treliving situation, but was he asked about that? And is there light at the end of the tunnel. Hildeby is a guy I think that still needs time in the minors. I wouldn't lay that loss at his feet the other night, but I don't know if he's an everyday guy right now. Stolarz had such a great start to the season. Joseph Woll, has been playing well, but he's not playing every night. So I think they need Stolarz back sooner than later.
They definitely do, and I'd say the light at the end of the tunnel is, he's going to start skating here, Stolarz, on his own initially, and then obviously start ramping his way back up to return to play. And I think probably the biggest question is whether he's back before the Four Nations event starts. He's just at about 4 weeks, give or take, right now. They announced a 4 to 6 week timeline on his return, and so I think that'll depend on how it goes for him once he gets back on the ice, and obviously with it being a knee procedure, just seeing how his body reacts to that work. But, all sort of indications are it's been positive for him. I think the team's gotten through this stretch pretty well, given, obviously the team save percentage has gone down since he's gone out of the lineup. They haven't got the same quality of goaltending, but, they've done pretty well with his absence, and, I don't think it'll be too long before we're looking at him coming back. It's just a matter of if that ends up happening before the Four Nations break or if it occurs afterwards.
Well, if it's after, that would be longer than they initially indicated, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of like Joseph Woll last year, where it was always, it'll be 4 to 6 weeks. Then he was out for like 3 months with that high ankle sprain. And I know that Stolarz had this procedure done, but they got a lot of games between now and then, CJ. And if Stolarz isn't back, then how many games can we reasonably expect Joseph Woll to play?
Right, and that's me musing about the break.
Right.
To be fair, I haven't heard anything to suggest his timeline is askew yet, but, they have the Western Canada trip before the break. You'd love to see him on that, I would think. And, you're right. They do have a fair number of games. At least it's lightened up finally with the back-to-backs after they just binged on that through December and into early January there. But, I think Woll's done pretty well, and so that Matt Murray might be an option too if they don't like what they've seen from Hildeby. So it's certainly not perfect, but the goal here is to get Stolarz back and kicking him again soon, because he's one of the best goalies in the league, by the numbers to start this year.
Well, and I'm sure the same applies with Jake McCabe. And I saw he skated today. He was out on his own, I believe, for about 10 minutes. That wouldn't indicate he's playing anytime soon. But there's been so much focus on them, approaching the center position, and Brad Treliving indicated they're certainly going to look at that. I would presume they probably try to add some depth there. But I'm not convinced they don't look at their defense still and believe that they need something there, because you take McCabe out of this, it's a massive, massive hole. And now he's had multiple head injuries in a short period of time. Morgan Rielly, they gave him one shot with Tanev. They took him off on Saturday. They said, that's it. We saw what we saw in Carolina. You're not playing with Chris Tanev on Saturday night. They moved around the defense core.
Which is crazy, Hayes. Like, you would think that would be a dream pairing.
Exactly, but it just doesn't. It just doesn't jive.
I get it.
Benoit's not playing great. He's getting caved in a little bit. Like, I still think this defense core. I guess what I'm getting to, CJ, is for years leading up to the deadline, it was defense, defense, defense. I'm not convinced we're not still going to be attacking that position come the trade deadline when it comes to the Leafs.
I would agree. It's still probably a secondary priority at this point. Lots of time for that to change. You hope no one gets injured between then and now, but injuries could blow up the whole plan or force a shifting of the plan still between now and March 7th. But the other part of it too that we haven't really got to is Yanni Hakanpää, and he was back at practice today, but the guy's played 2 games all season with the Leafs, 2 more at the Marlies. He would sign as a potential player that I think could help out the third pairing, but I don't know where everything stands with him. And so if it doesn't look like you can rely on him to play when it matters, even as a 7-8 kind of guy, and then you're looking at some of the injuries that are there, sure, I think it'd be perfectly reasonable for them to go out and try to get another defenseman. I don't know what's going to be out there yet. Probably guys like David Savard and Montreal as a rental, a few other sorts of that nature that probably makes sense. But, I think that clearly they tried to do the biggest work in the summer. The Tanev acquisition's gone great. I think OEL by and large has been a good signing so far. He's been a good part of this blue line. But, I'm with you. I still think it's a work in progress, and wouldn't surprise me when we get to March 7th if we're talking about a couple of acquisitions for this team.
CJ, we were talking earlier about teams like pushing back on when to sell just with their fan bases, and everyone's basically alive. And they've got hope. They've given some of their fan bases hope. Do you think it's going to be like a delayed, we're selling kind of situation this year?
In some markets, for sure. I mean, I still think, like a team like Pittsburgh, for example, which is kind of kicking around the wild card chase. Like, I still think that they're going to be looking to be sellers kind of no matter what. The teams at the very bottom, it's pretty evident the Anaheims and Chicago's will be selling what they can sell. Where, you start to come into questions is, a team like Columbus, who I don't think anybody would have had projected to be in the mix at, even the midway point of the season. If they stay there for another month, I think it's going to be harder for them, just for those reasons to sell, for their dressing room, for their fan base. Maybe a team like that could flip-flop either way. So I think it's a little bit market dependent. The Islanders, for example, who have some pretty intriguing pieces to potentially move, guys like Brock Nelson, Kyle Palmieri, and others. If they, they've kind of had a recent little mini surge here. I don't see them selling as long as they're in the race. And so, I could see it all being complicated. And then you add this Four Nations tournament. I mean, the league doesn't start back up again until February 22nd after that tournament, and the deadline's March 7th. So you're less than 2 weeks from when the league restarts to that deadline. And so it's a pretty compressed window where I think we could see a lot of action and might be really hinging on if there's some separation in this wildcard race. And I don't know in the East specifically if any of these teams are good enough to truly separate. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if there's after 5 or 6 that mathematically are kind of in it, right through into March, just because, I don't look at them and think that one is clearly better and is due to take off here.
Any rumblings around, there is, around the Rangers. We were talking about it, I think, in the 4 o'clock hour. That team, I think, is pretty good on paper. They certainly have players that are not playing up to their potential. We've heard rumblings, obviously, out of New York and rumors, all of that. But do you still think something major is coming or potentially could come from the Rangers, or a shakeup? Because something has to give there, in my opinion, to if they're going to try and get into that playoff situation or that last spot, or even go, deeper, higher up in the standings.
Yeah, I don't think it can be ruled out, at this point. And in the very short window here, they have turned things around. They've won a little bit of late. I think 4 or 5. Yeah. They've won, and so that helps quiet it a little bit. But even still, I don't see them becoming a buyer. I don't see them giving up draft picks to get rental players at this stage. I think the kinds of trades that they're going to look at is perhaps selling a player or two that's on an expiring deal themselves, or something a little bit more fundamental if there's a bigger trade to be had. And, between teams like the Canucks and the Sabres, the Rangers, there's a few others. I'm not saying they're all that something's going to connect on a major trade, but there does at least seem to be a couple teams that are considering bigger deals than just, a rental for a draft pick, the kind of normal trades I'd say we see in this window. And so, until we get past March 7th, I'm going to say everything's on the table for the Rangers. And then even when we get into the offseason and the run-up to the draft, they look like a team that probably needs some bigger remodeling or has a desire still to do that kind of work. So, the recent wins have helped a little bit in the standings, made things quieter, but I don't think it's changed what management's thinking about the approach they need to take.
Well, I'm curious if what's happened in Detroit ever since they made that coaching decision is going to have an effect on a team like the Rangers or other teams in the same boat, CJ, because Todd McLellan, maybe it's a coincidence, but it would sure seem to be that this guy's pushing the right buttons and this team is absolutely on fire right now.
Yeah, hard to argue with 7 straight wins. Pretty crazy. They've won 7 in a row and they're still not in the playoff spot either.
Right.
It just tells you where they were. Right. They waited probably even longer than they wanted to fire Derek Lalonde. I really think they didn't want to make that firing, but they kind of felt like they got to the point where they had to. And their power play has been absolutely on fire. I think they're at about 50% since McLellan took over, which obviously helps things. But, he's definitely lit a fire under them. And for a team like that, it makes a difference. I think that they're in the same sort of situation as like an Ottawa they want as an organization to get in. It matters to them, even if they're sneaking into the second wild card just to play their first playoff series in however many years it's been. I think there's value for the Red Wings in that, and that's why you make that kind of change, is because you're hoping for the bounce. And so, I don't know how sustainable it is. Obviously, they're not going to win out from here on in, but just going on this hot run at least has revamped in a big way their playoff aspirations. And I do think that's another front office that's out there looking to try to find something on the trade market if it materializes to give the group a boost, because the years of waiting for draft picks and stuff in Detroit are supposed to be over, and this has been a nice run they've had since McLellan took over.
All right, CJ, we'll leave it there. We'll do it again next week.
Right on, boys.
Chris Johnston joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Count on Maple Toyota for the right winter tire package for your Toyota. Trade in your old tires, buy a new set, get $40 back. Visit mapletoyota.com. CJ, we didn't ask him about Mike McCarthy, but it sounds like he's out as the coach of the Cowboys. Really? It's not really a firing. It's that his deal is expired. It's confusing. It's typically Dallas. I guess it is a firing. And now you wonder, does he go to Chicago? Could the Jets maybe call on him? Because
dude, what are these teams that they watched the last couple years where they had to say, that's my guy? What? Well,
listen, what he is he represents some stability. I get the Cowboys were a mess this year.
Stability. Hayes, who's the bald guy with the visor in Chicago? People are talking to him. Nagy.
Yeah, Matt Nagy. Yeah. Well, he doesn't. I mean, McCarthy has been a coach for 20 years. He won a Super Bowl. That you can't take that away from
pedigree.
Him. Yeah, I'm not. It's not even a hiring. If you're the Jets or the Bears, you're not thinking I'm going to win a Super Bowl.
Dude, he's got pedigree. But you know what people have been saying the last couple of years? Doesn't take timeouts, clock management.
That's always been a problem for him.
I know. Always. So why the hell would you want to hire him?
Again, I think it's more about we're not even thinking winning Super Bowls. It's can we stop being a complete disaster and a joke.
Yeah.
There's layers of building up. And I think that's what Mike McCarthy represents is, okay, some credibility, some semblance of a plan, some understanding of what the culture has to be. Again, he'll probably burn you. You're not going to win many playoff games or a Super Bowl. He'll probably
somebody's hiring old Cliffy Queensberry, too.
Yeah, Cliff's going to get probably hooked up. Yeah. That's going to happen. We'll come back with our best bets. We should point out, I mean, people are tracking this Roki Sasaki, the Japanese pitcher.
Stop it.
I've got to report
the Dodgers and the Jays in the running
coming to the Jays. He's coming to the Jays.
Got to report this, okay? Jeff Passan is reporting of ESPN. The finalist for the Japanese star right-hander are the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yes.
Oh, no. Here we go.
The San Diego Padres.
And the Toronto
Blue Jays.
Don't do it, man. Stop it.
So here we go. Sasaki will decide on his team by the closing of his posting window, January 23rd.
So he's using the Jays. It's the Ohtani thing again. He's using the Jays to run the price up.
Listen, the Jays are in contention. They're in the running. They're in the room, and they're very excited. And, I mean, this is a totally different story because this guy's not getting any money. He doesn't have any rights to post for big money. It's going to be essentially like a minor league deal. You'll have rights to him for a long time. He just wants to come over early and make it as a major leaguer. So it's not like you can get outbid by any of these teams. You're simply promoting your program, which, again, I don't know how you could ever beat the Dodgers in a situation like this. I have no idea what the Jays could possibly say other than maybe, hey, you'd be our ace. Potentially you'd be our guy.
Yeah, depth chart maybe.
Yeah, possibly. But, listen, if you got him, you roll your eyes if you want. But if you got him, that'd be a big win for the Jays.
Yeah, but how many times are you sick of seeing that?
They're
in the running with the Dodgers.
I'm not holding my breath,
he's not
but
picking
coming
the Jays.
Here. He's probably not going to. My guess will be in the next 72 hours it'll come out he's chosen the Dodgers. And,
yes.
That's probably what's going to happen. All right, best bets coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, time now for our best bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Vikings in the over tonight. Hayes and Bro, we need this one tonight. All right, it's a neutral site game. The game's being played in Arizona. And Vikings have been better than the Rams all year. I'm banking on Sam Darnold. It was a one-off last week. He figures it out. I think both defenses, though, their secondaries could get exposed at times. I think Stafford will put up some points, too. I said earlier, 28-24 Vikings tonight. Vikings cover over the number. There's your bets. Powered by FanDuel. FanDuel, the home of popular parlays this NFL season. Please play responsibly. 19+, physically located in Ontario. And I'll tell you what, man, we're going to be talking a lot this week about that Ravens and Bills game on Sunday night.
Yeah.
Like, that is just so good. You see Houston's playing at 4:30 again on Saturday against Kansas City. Like, it's automatic. 4:30 Saturday, Houston, you're in it.
Maybe somebody else will be reading a book on the sidelines for knowledge.
A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
Is that just a hero? Like, that's such a stupid...
I think
how do you
it's
get a
insane.
book out there? Yeah,
Dude,
that's
I
crazy.
think it's insane in a professional sporting event. Like,
Playoff
I don't
game at home.
I don't care if there's the most wisdom on earth in that book. You're not picking up a
show
book,
up.
No, it's
man.
it's
Put a show
heroic.
on.
It's a
I didn't
total
like it.
hero play. There's no other way to put it. All right. We'll break down the game tomorrow. We got the Leafs in action tomorrow. Maybe Sasaki is a J by this time tomorrow, right? Brokey
yeah.
to the Jays. Might happen. You never know. All right. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. Everyone for tuning in. TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate it. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at...
JP and Luke, the first podcast drops tomorrow at 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.